When you dive into the food realities of 1940s war zones, you're stepping into a world where survival hinged not on luck, but on discipline, ingenuity, and a relentless understanding of scarcity. Before we get into the meat of this guide, let's hook into a truth every serious historian knows. The home fronts and front lines of the Second World War were shaped just as much by calories as by bullets. Entire strategies collapsed because supply lines broke. Civilians endured winters because they outsmarted hunger. Soldiers lived another day because someone far behind the lines preserved a single extra ration. For the Channel Warpaths of Europe, these aren't just old stories. They're blueprints of resilience, and if you study them carefully, you'll find they're as useful for historical insight as they are for modern preparedness. Today, we're going to break down the disaster-proof food strategies used in the 1940s war zones and show you how they worked, why they mattered, and how they can still be applied in the present day. Rationing wasn't just a government policy. It was an enforced mindset. In Britain, Germany, and across occupied Europe, authorities had to prevent panic and preserve morale by controlling food distribution. This meant carefully planned weekly allowances of meat, fats, sugar, and grain. It led civilians to build habits that kept pantries stable even when shelves were bare. The discipline of measuring every ounce of butter or stretching flour into multiple meals laid the foundation for what survivalists today would call consumption management. If you're applying this in real life, start with the same principle. Track your daily intake, figure out exactly what you need versus what you want, and practice making meals that can stretch ingredients across several days. Wartime cooks became masters of substitution, using root vegetables instead of grain fillers, turning kitchen scraps into broths, and relying on seasonal produce because nothing else was guaranteed. That practice remains one of the strongest safeguards in a long-term crisis. Canning, salting, fermenting, and air drying weren't trendy homestead hobbies in the 1940s. They were survival tools. Across Eastern Europe, especially in regions cut off after rapid frontline shifts, households relied on bulk preserved foods that could last months without electricity. Salted pork lofts, dried beans, canned vegetables, pickled cabbage jars, and cured fish became strategic assets. What made these methods powerful was their decentralization. A family could lose everything outside the home, but still have enough calories stored in hidden cellars to survive through a winter. To apply this today, follow the wartime model. Choose foods that provide high calories and stable storage. Beans, grains, root vegetables, cured meats, and learn at least 2 preservation methods for each. That redundancy mirrors what civilians used during sieges, including in places like Leningrad, where survival often depended on whether a household had managed to preserve anything before the lines closed. Scarcity pushed people to think differently. Powdered acorns became coffee substitutes in Germany. Beet syrup replaced sugar across half of Europe. When dairy vanished, cooks thickened meals with pureed vegetables. In some regions, soldiers used crushed hardtack as a thickener in soups and stews. What historians studying these patterns notice is that these people understood nutritional profiles, even if they didn't use modern vocabulary. They knew acorns offered fats and tannins, or that turnips could compensate for missing grains. If you want a practical takeaway, build your own substitution list. Study which vegetables can replace carbohydrates, which nuts can provide protein when meat is scarce, and which wild plants historically filled nutritional voids when farms were destroyed. This isn't romanticizing hardship. It's acknowledging that innovation thrives under constraints. Frontline requirements were brutally simple. Food had to be portable, dense, and long-lasting. The German iron ration, British emergency ration, and American D-ration bar all answered the same need in different ways. These rations weren't designed for comfort. They were designed to keep a soldier alive for just long enough to escape encirclement or rejoin supply lines. They had high fat content for slow-burning calories, minimal moisture to prevent spoilage, and compact shapes to fit into pack pockets. For modern preparedness, the lesson is straightforward. Build a mobility kit with items that mirror those wartime principles. High-fat bars, dried sausage, hard cheese waxed for longevity, dense crackers, and a mix of dried fruit. Don't rely on foods that require cooking. Soldiers couldn't depend on fire, and in a real emergency, neither can you. In occupied regions, the danger wasn't just starvation, it was confiscation. Families buried food in sealed jars under garden soil, hid grains inside wall cavities, and used false floors to protect what little they had. Some villages built communal secret stores, so no single home became a target. The lesson here is resilience through decentralization. Never keep all essential supplies in one place. If you want to apply this today, follow the wartime model by dividing long-term food stores into several small caches. Keep one accessible and the rest concealed in discreet locations within your property. This strategy ensured survival for countless families who otherwise would have lost everything to occupying forces. The disaster-proof food strategies of 1940s war zones weren't theoretical. They were crafted under pressure by people who understood that survival depended on preparation, discipline, and creativity. Study their methods closely, and you'll find a blueprint that's both historically rich and practically usable today. If you want more deep-dive guides like this, make sure you subscribe to Warpaths of Europe and share this video with fellow historians and survival-minded friends.